me, get the keys to the kingdom.
Like that in the word picture. All right? And it represents a tent wall, a fence, or separation. What is the noon? Man, I mean, this is so easy. Seed or activity. Or what's the last one? Life. So what do we see in just the first two letters? Some kind of way, this word means that something is going to separate us in order, in a tent or a wall, right? A fence, a wall, is going to separate because whenever you have a wall, it's for protection. So you are being separated in order to protect life. Already. Come on now. I mean, we ain't even got to go deep. You can see it in the first two. So how are we, and of course, everybody knows what the hay represents? Lo, behold, the. So we talking about looking or beholding or worship. Remember the picture is a man up with his hands upstretched like that. Remember the ancient picture of the hay? So we see that it is the worshiper of Yah who is separated from something in order to be protected. Or, here's a word, in order to be saved. Or, can I use this word? Safe from something. Now, the Hebrew language is so different than English, and the meaning of words, you can have the same word, but a totally different dictionary. And it makes no difference if you say a word and your understanding of that word is one thing. I say the exact same word, but my understanding of that word is another thing. Then you and I are going to have a misunderstanding. Same word, two different definitions. Let me give you an example. My nephew is here, and when I was young, I was strong like him. I'm serious. I was the strong son. And then I got old. I was wondering if anybody else was going to get my daddy's strength. And my nephew got it. That Negro is strong. I mean, that Hebrew is strong, right? Now, if you're working with Chris, if you're working with him and he says, pick that up, man, and you say, no, man, that's heavy. He said, no, it's light. Y'all better have the same definition of what light is. Because what's light to him, are y'all in the room, might be heavy to you, which is totally opposite. The word is completely opposite. So you go over trying to snatch something that he told you was light and you break your back. So in order for something to be heavy or light, some kind of way we got to have a definition of what constitutes something that's heavy. Y'all get that? So at what point does it become heavy? And what point does it become light? See, if you just say, oh, that's light, it might be, it's how you look at it. Somebody could say something like, it would be nice if I had some AIDS. And you thinking, you want AIDS? Right? You thinking the disease AIDS. This person is talking about financial AIDS. You get the... I need somebody to help me do something, but that word AIDS is now not to help you do something, but it's a disease that'll kill you. What has happened with the Bible is that we have taken the words from the Hebrew and the original meanings, and this is the sad thing. And we have placed a Greek mind or Western mind in the word, and now the definition has changed, so much so that you got people in church saying we don't have to keep the commandments of the Most High. And they'll tell you in a minute, we ain't keeping no law. We're not keeping the commandments. We're under grace. That in itself is just weird. Unless you're using grace to sin, and you know the Bible says, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Yah forbid. So then we got to define another word. It's obvious. We got to define sin. Right. So now we've got to define sin so that we make sure that we're not using grace, quote unquote, to sin. We need to find out what sin is. John chapter 4, verse 3 is plain. Sin is the transgression of the law. Anytime you transgress the law, that is a sin. So do you continue transgressing the law so that grace may abound? Hen, not charis, not this. Free and unmerited favor, but this, being separated unto the Most High Yah for your protection. And then, of course, Rabbi Shaul, being a Hebrew himself, knows what he means when he uses the word grace. And that's what I want to show you in the next few minutes, and then we'll let you go home. All right? The Hebrew word translated as hen in our manuscript comes from a two-letter root, which is, I showed you already, it's the het and the nun. And in order to really find the true meaning, we got to look at one of its verbal roots, and that's the one I put on the board. And so what you do is you add the hey to the end. And when you see it in the verbal form by putting the hey on the end of those two root letters, you'll get this particular word, which is hen, with just an added hey. Now watch. Go with me to Genesis 26:17. And I want to thank Jeff Benner for bringing this out and becoming a blessing, a great blessing to the Hebrew family and community, for doing this kind of research to help us understand the actual meaning of original meanings and ancient meanings of the manuscript. Somebody got Genesis 26:17? It's one verse. I want you to read it. And Isaac departed thence and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. Genesis 26:17. That word is hen. He pitched his tent. The word pitched his tent in English is the word hen in Hebrew. And the question is, if you pitched a tent, it means to the Hebrew, we're talking about camp. Aren't we? That's when they moved around, they would have to stop and camp out. Why do you pitch a tent? Well, let's talk about what a tent is first. A tent becomes their temporary dwelling. And every tent has a tent wall. And what you do is you pitch up a tent so that you can get inside the tent and be protected from that which is outside the tent that would harm you, whether it's man or beast. So in a very real sense, pitching a tent has a lot to do with hen or grace. So watch this. Being then in the tent, means that you are now separated from that which is outside the tent. So you're starting to get the picture of the biblical word for grace, hen, a little more clearly. The verb means to pitch a tent or to camp, and it comes from, the noun derived from this verb is, now all they did was add a mem, so this is hen, so it'd be mahene, mahene, mahene. All right? And again, Exodus 14 and 20. Let's look at that. Go to Exodus chapter 14 and verse 12, and you will see this word used again in a very interesting way. Because the Hebrew will always bring you back to something concrete. It's just the way it is. Greek and English will leave you out there hanging. You don't know what the definition really is. But in Hebrew, you will always come back to something you can see, touch, feel, taste, experience, so on and so forth. All right, Exodus chapter 14, verse 20. I'll read it. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near to the other all night. You Hebrews know that he's talking here about the exodus from African Egypt, when Pharaoh had changed his mind and decided to pursue after our ancestors who had just walked up out of Egypt, having spoiled them with silver, gold, brass, cattle, clothes, and everything, pots and pans and dishes. And Pharaoh had a change of mind and decided to pursue them. You had a question? That was 14:12 that you read. 14:20. Whoa, thank you. 14:20. Somebody's going to be lost in space. Yeah, 14:20. Thank you. 14 verse 20. Exodus. Now, when you see it says, and it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, that's the word hen. Or mahenen. That's the same word. Why? Because now you're seeing that het, where you see a separation being made between the groups of people, so that Yah used a pillar. Oh my goodness, this is preaching. I promise you it's preaching ground. He used a pillar of a cloud, and he also had a pillar of fire, and he used that pillar to keep his people separated from the Egyptians. That's grace. So guess what? Remove the pillar of cloud or the pillar of fire, and what you have is the Egyptians encroaching on the children of Israel and defeating them or hurting them and harming them. Ooh, can I just say this before I shut down? Yahoshua HaMashiach is our pillar of cloud by day and our pillar of fire at night. It is him who keeps us separated from this Babylon Egypt that we're in this very day. If any of y'all really caught anything I just said, would you signify with an amen? Grace is when the Most High is so kind to us. He allows us in the camp where his protection is against the enemy. When we think of a camp, most of the time we think of a campsite, we think of tents scattered everywhere. But as I said before, and you all can look this up, Jeff does a great job at finding a picture of a tent and a tent city. And I'll have to have Marika superimpose this when she puts it online. I'll make sure that we'll put a slide of this. But they would camp in rows like this. And these rows of camp would be sort of like, and I'll draw it right here. So remember, especially our people, because we had we were moving in the wilderness, we had the Ark of the Covenant, so we had the tabernacle. So I'm just going to quickly draw a tabernacle here. So I'm going to make a little small tabernacle. Say this is the tabernacle with the holy place. Well, the camps, they were all around like this in lines. And they would, you had the camps laid out based on the 12 tribes. But they went out like this everywhere. And so, too many. I don't know what okay, here we go. I was trying to make 3 on each side. I made 4 right here. So what you see developing here is like a wall. So if so then the second group would be here. And of course, this represents the 12 tribes, and they all would be, and so eventually the camp would go out like this, and you would just have camps all around with a centerpiece here, and then you got the outer. So watch this. The tents themselves, the actual tents themselves, create a wall because they're lined up. So in order for somebody to come into the camp, they would have to break through the individual tents, which have already made like a fence. Ain't that something? So watch this. If you were in trouble, and let's say this is you in trouble, and you running. I'm talking about like the Dickens, trying to get away from your enemies who are much bigger than you. And they on the move, man, and you in the wind, you moving this way. You don't want to get caught. So you pushing toward where? You're trying to get to the camp. Because that's where the safety is. That's where the people are. That's where your protection is. So you running. This big old fella's chasing you. You moving in the wind. You moving. He's moving. You're moving. Finally, you get in. Woo! You made it. He's standing right here. Now he got a choice. You want to take a chance on actually trying to come into the camp and bother you? No. But as long as you're outside the camp, he'll mess with you every day. But once he realizes you're in a camp, and then we don't have to talk about all the other spiritual implications of this, because that's not what I'm trying to do tonight. I just want to show you something. Once you get in here, you are saved. That's what Rabbi Shaul said. For by entering into the camp, you are saved. By getting in the camp, or getting in the tent, if you please, or getting in the assembly, it all means the same thing. You're in the family. That's how you're saved. How do you do it? Through faith. That means, and we'll get to that later, but you cannot have faith without follow, faith without dependent, faith without trust. You can't have those words. So when you state it, the Hebrew word for faith, it literally means to follow or to trust in or to rely on. So here's what he's saying. The reason that you get in the camp is because, first of all, this camp is mobile, but you are trusting that once you're in here, you're safe. That's how you get in. It's a gift. What's the gift? The camp is the gift. The tent is the gift. Oh my God. The tent is the gift for you, for this fella. not of works. Why? Let any man, how he gonna brag about the camp? He know he can't brag. He's just happy he made it in. But it was Yah who set up the tent. It was Yah who set up the camp. It's Yah who set up the tabernacle. Everybody else is benefiting from what the Most High Yah has created, which we now know as grace in English, but as HHEN. This is his picture of HHEN, being a part of the camp. Verse 10, and I'm out, of Ephesians. In verse 10 of Ephesians it says, and I was going to do the whole chapter. When you get a chance, go back and read the whole second chapter, because you will discover in Ephesians chapter 2 that Paul's whole appeal, I'm talking about everything he's talking about, is folk outside the camp getting in. That's all he's talking about. He's talking about people who were outside of Israel getting into Israel. People who were separated from Israel can now come into the camp. They can get in Israel. They can be adopted. That's all he's talking about. He said, because at one time you were out there, you didn't have nothing. Matter of fact, he said you were dead in trespasses and sin. But the gospel came, which gave you an opportunity to get in our camp, because we are the ones who were blessed to have this camp all of our lives. Y'all didn't have a camp. Well, you had camps, but they couldn't stand it. But you get the point. You'll read chapter 2 with new eyes now, and you will see that in verse 10 he says something very powerful. And I'll read it for you. Ephesians, let me get back to Ephesians. Chapter 2, verse 10. For we are. He didn't say for you guys are. He said for we are. Who's the we? He's talking about him, the Hebrew Israelites, and those that come into the camp. I want to show you something here. He says we are his workmanship, created in the Hamashiach Yahushua unto what kind of works? Oh, no, bad works. No, we can get, now that we got grace, we can go on and sin. We got grace and we're new creatures, so now we can go on and lie and steal and cheat and worship other gods and eat all the pigs we want because we got grace. Do you see how Rabbi Shaul's mind was nowhere close to that? The mind of the rabbi was simple. He was like, you get in the tent of a people who've already been made, and the rules of the tent have already been established, and what happens here is a production of good works. So how can you say, I can sin as much as I want, I can break Yah's laws and produce bad works as much as I want, and still be in the camp? You must never read the journeys of the children of Israel. Because, let me finish that verse. Which Yahuwah has before ordained. Wait a minute. I thought the church was a new thing. No. Rabbi Shaul said, you do know that Yah had ordained his laws, precepts, his Torah, teaching his camp way back in the wilderness. Watch this. That we should walk in what? No, we're going to walk in some new stuff. We got new ways. This 2015, I guess. We don't have to walk in them old ways that he foreordained. He said, no, Rabbi Shaul said, no, man, he already has established his own, his righteousness. He's already established his good works. And all we got to do is walk in what he's already established. Verse 11, wherefore remember that you see that in the Bible? Watch this. being in times past Gentiles in the flesh. See, he always does that. He talks about us. He's talking about Hebrew Israelites. When he's talking about y'all, he said you. It's right here. Who are called uncircumcision, which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands, that at that time you were without hamartia. You see that word grace coming in again? You see the concept of it. You were outside the camp, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. I think it was Marika who gave me a definition of this, and I thought she answered a question one day. I said, that's pretty good. Commonwealth is the wealth that everybody has in common, right? It's like a simple definition for that. What was the commonwealth of Israel? Right, it was this. It was the Torah, and it was the camp. It was the family. The commonwealth was the family and the word. That was their wealth. Their wealth was in the people and the Torah. That's right. So you guys had no clue. You were out here running around, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel. That's what is in your Bible. I had a guy tell me, that represents the church. You was alienated from the church. So you don't realize that the church started in the wilderness. It's in the Bible. All right, last word. I just want to show you something. It says, you were strangers. You were being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope. You see what he said? Y'all have no hope. And without Yahuwah in this world. That was your problem. You didn't have no connection here. You wasn't in the camp. You were outside the camp. You were on your way to hell. The devil had you. Yah was not on your side. And then the gospel was preached. And the part of the gospel message was some of the folk in the camp broke off because they went into wicked and evilness. And as a result, it opened up an opportunity for some Gentiles, according to the flesh, to get in. And that's good news. Let me give you these verses and I'm done. I'm not just going to read them to you. Psalm 6:2. Have mercy upon me, O Yah, for I am weak, O Yah. Heal me, for my bones are vexed. That word heal there, hen. Why? Because in the camp, the healing. Remember in Jeremiah, we had a call. Is there any balm in Gilead? Is there any physician? So what happens when the Hamashiach comes? He actually appears. He comes with healing in his wings. That is him. Second, Psalm 30 and verse 10. Hear, O Yah, and have mercy upon me. Yah, be my helper. The word helper there, translated in Hebrew, hin. So who is the helper? He is our Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh. He said, I will pray the Father and he will send you a helper. Right? The word is a help, but Yah is our help, our present help in times of trouble. So what do we want to do? We want to, I hope y'all seeing the picture now of what grace is. Be merciful unto me, O Yah, be merciful unto me, for my soul trusteth in thee. Yeah, in the shadow of thy wings will I make my refuge until these calamities be overpassed. Psalm 57:1. Now watch this. Have mercy upon me. That word be merciful, right here, hin. So look at the words, and I don't have time to write them down, but look at the words. Well, I'll write them. Heal. Oh. So biblical words relating to what they call the word grace, or in English we got the word grace. We have the word heal. All right, heal. Where's my other pen? Oh, okay. Secondly, we see the word help. I just read the word merciful. There's also a word, but thou, O Yah, be merciful unto me and raise me up. So raise up. Here's another one, Psalm 86 and 16. O turn unto me and have mercy upon me and give thy strength unto thy servant and save the son of thine handmaiden. That word give strength and save is all hen. So give strength and save. Now that you see that word save this way, give strength. Two words. Yeah, I just put them too close together. Sorry. Let me get it. S-T-R-E-N-G-T-H. Oh. Give strength. All right, there we go. So we have this one word that's translated grace in your English Bible that people think is simply unmerited favor, which is no definition at all. What's unmerited mean and what is favor? But when you bring it to the Hebrew, then you get a definition. You get a tent wall, you get separation, you get the Most High protecting life. That's what it's about. And then when you read it in its context in the different verses of the Bible, it furthers the definition. So you see it means to heal, to help, a place where there's mercy, to raise up, to give strength, and to save. All of these words, synonyms, point to a tent or a tabernacle or a house or a people. And of course it means to raise an actual tent. And I don't have no space, but that word here, to rise up, is what we do when we get ready to build a tent. It's flat in the beginning, then you put the poles in and you stretch it out and it raises up. And of course, once my man gets into the camp, he's then saved. So it's like hand in glove with Rabbi Shaul, who says, for by grace, for by hand, you are saved. Through faith, it's the gift of Yah. Not yourself. It's not of works. Lest any man should boast. But understand something. But we are his workmanship, created for good works, and good work is keeping Torah. Amen? Amen? Amen. Shalom, shalom.